Cathy and I am part of the artistic ensemble of SideQuest Productions. Today in this video, I'll be showing you a few tricks that I use quite often in OBS. Alright, so tricks I use in OBS. So I use something called scene nesting. Not my original idea. I learned it from other people who used OBS as well. Common term. So what scene nesting is essentially when you have a scene as a source within a scene. To explain it, as you can see right now, I have a scene called Yellow Box Scene that has two sources, a frame and something called yellow. Now, if we create a new scene by going to our scene windows, right-clicking, and selecting Add, we'll add Scene 2, and then adding a new source by going to our sources, right-clicking, Add, and going down our source menu, there is an option called Scene. So by selecting it, it brings us to our Create/Source, Select Source window, and make sure you have Add Existing checked, and it'll have, in this window, all the scenes that you have created minus the current one that you're in. So as you can see, there's Yellow Box Scene. So I'm going to select it, hit OK, and it brings the scene in as you see it here. Like in the same settings, same like configuration in Scene 2, but instead of, as you can see in Scene 2, where you have frame, yellow, we just have Yellow Box Scene. Now, in the previous video, I showed you how to group things, which is you select the items that you want grouped, right click, go to group selectings, group selected items, group 4 is fine in this case, and then you can import then the group, because what OBS does is when you create a group, it creates it as a new source. So for example, if we create a new scene, right click, add, go all the way down to group, and you select add existing, there's group 4. You press OK. Now group 4 is brought in with its group and the individual sources. Now, I prefer using scene nesting over grouping. Why? There's plenty of reasons, but I'm just going to list a few for the sake of time. One of which is sometimes when the group is expanded, like as you can see here, and you see the sources, and it's not in this case, but in some cases for Intervallum, SideQuest current virtual production, I have multiple sources in my sources window. And sometimes I'll have selected the wrong source, and then I'll make a change to it without meaning to. Now, when you make a change to a source that is in a group, if we go to Yellow Box Scene where it also has group 4, that change has now been updated as well. So even though I made that change in in Scene 3, it applied that change to the group in Yellow Box Scene. Not a huge deal, but sometimes when you're prone to silly mistakes like I am, it gets annoying. Another reason is you cannot add the same group multiple times in the same scene. So I cannot add group 4 again in Scene 3. And to prove my point, if you right click, add, go to group, even if you select add existing, you don't have group 4 even available as an option. However, you can add multiple scenes at the same time. Or you can add the same scene within Scene 2 multiple times. So if I do add scene, Yellow Box Scene, okay, and if we change the one on top, you can see that it's there. So another convenient thing. Reason 3 is for transitions. So there's a transition called Move Transition that you can install into OBS. I will show you how to do that in a later video, but for now I'm just going to sort of breeze through it. So in Move Transition, there's settings that you can have it set to so that your transition looks a certain way, but sometimes when you have it, depending on the settings you have in Move Transition, I have noticed that for a group, move transition will sometimes apply the transition to the sources individually rather than as a group, which tends to make for a messier transition. Doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes, again, depending on the settings you have it set to, it does that. So by eliminating multiple sources and making it only one, a lot easier to deal with and less fixing and less like, what did I do wrong kind of situation. Okay. So another thing that I use often in OBS is something called the copy and paste transform. In the previous video, I went over reset transform, but to sort of go over that again. So if let's just clean up a little bit. I'm going to get rid of what I don't need. And I'm going to re-import yellow box scene again. So add scene, yellow box scene. So this is yellow box scene's default imported settings for scene 2. Let's say, you scale it, you move around, and you're like, oh, I messed up terribly for some reason, and I need to have a hard reset. Select the scene, right click, go to transform, reset. Voila, default settings, and a hard reset. Very convenient. But if you may have already noticed that when you right click, go to transform, there's edit, copy, paste. I'm going to go over all three, but first copy and paste. So let's say, you need yellow box scene like this size, but in this kind of configuration, but for scenes 2, 3, and 4. So if you add scene 3, again, sometimes OBS does this. When you delete something, it needs a minute to sort of register that you deleted it and refresh the information because it does that. Oy, that should be enough. So yeah, sometimes you have to just sort of get OBS to be like, oh yeah, you deleted it, and you no longer, have a scene 3. So if you create the scene, add this yellow box scene as a source, it's blown up, but you want it to be how it is in scene 2. Now, it is pretty near nigh impossible to set that manually yourself. As you can see, you can get it close, but not perfect. If you can get perfect, you're some kind of divine being, and I want to know the trick. But for us mere mortals, there is a way. So if you go to scene 2, select the source, right click, transform, you can go to copy transform. So by clicking copy transform, what it has done is then copy where the source is in the OBS window along with its current size. So if you go to scene 3, select the source, right click, transform, paste, it has now pasted that same information from scene 2. So if you go to scene 2 to scene 3, it is now in the same spot. So vice versa, you can go to scene 4, or you can add scene 4. So add scene 4, import yellow box scene into it, select it, and since you've already copied the information, right click, transform, and paste the transformation. And as you can see, scene 2, 3, 4 are now all in the same spot. Now, you can only apply the paste transform information to the same source or similar sources that are the same size. What I mean is, so if we look at yellow box scene, it's like this, and then gray box scene, clearly a different size. And even if we've added, let's say, gray box scene into scene 2, and again, we've already copied yellow box scene's information and we've pasted it, it doesn't apply the information the same way as it did for yellow box scene, as you can see here. But if your source is originally the same size and it's the bounding box is the same for example, if you look at, like, if you go to properties, yellow is this square, and then if you look at the properties for gray, it's the same size. So I could copy yellow's information, copy, go to gray, and then paste that same information, and it'll be the same. As you can see here, the frame is the same, like it's the same source as it is in yellow box scene. So I could copy that and then paste that information, and then voila, gray box is now the same as yellow box. So because they're the same size now, you can apply, as you can see, it's now the same. You can apply the same copy and paste transform to gray box. Very convenient. I apparently hit it without knowing it. Very convenient when you have multiple actor boxes that you have to sort of set up. And now you don't have to like individually, import every single scene. Like you don't have to do yellow, then frame for like 2, 3, and 4, and etc., etc. Streamlines the process very nicely. So finally, as we get to the end of this tutorial-esque thing, let's say you want to sort of have 2 windows, but you want them on like the same horizontal axis or vertical axis. You can sort of, eyeball it, but if you're like me and you're sort of anal and you want them to be pretty perfect, what you can do is if you select one of them, right-click and go to transform and hit edit transform, it brings up the information, like the numerical information of the source. So it has the position of where this source is, 259. So this is the X axis or the horizontal axis. As you can see, if you change it, it goes up, it goes to the right, go down, it goes to the left. This is the y-axis or the vertical axis. If you go up, it goes down, down, up. And so you can bring this window up also to like sort of fine-tune your edits. I don't generally use this. I usually like roughly eyeball things. I mainly use it to sort of make sure everything's on the same axis. And also, but it also like has a size and position alignment, top left. So what that means is it's taking all this information is derived from this point right here. And you can also crop it. As you can see, it turned green, thus cropping our source by 5. I'm just gonna set it back to 0. So yellow box is at 221 by 118. So if we click gray box, and we're like, well, I want it to be in the same vertical axis. So if you click yellow box again, 221, 118, gray box, 589, 259. Generally, I usually go by whatever number's the closest is usually the one that I match. So 251 is obviously closer to 221 versus 589 and 118. So I could change that to 221, and they're now on the same vertical axis. Same way if I want it to be on the same horizontal axis. Roughly get it into its, like eyeball it. Something seems off clearly. If I want to go off of like the yellow one, 201, 219. And obviously 1102, not even close, but this is pretty close. So I can go to 19. And there you go. The same horizontal axis. So again, edit, don't really use it too much. I find that, doing it with going off of eye works. I mainly use it just to make sure things are on the same plane. like on the same axis, because again, it bugs me when things are slightly off, and you'd be surprised at how much you can read when, like, how much it bugs you when things are slightly off. But again, I'll go over transitions in a later video, and I hope I was able to offer a little bit of insight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I was able to show you something that will make OBS a little bit easier for you. If you appreciated the video, please press that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye!